Hello, in this video we're gonna go over plots animation. So we will see how to create animations using two libraries. Matplotlib, which is the visualization library that we have used throughout the course, and also Plotly, which actually we have used for animations in the past. Only for one, for the Gapminder dataset, if you remember, we used Plotly to create our first animation, which is it's simple, it's just to add a parameter, the animation frame. Okay, so this is how our animations will look. It's just a collection of frames. So we need to create multiple plots or frames, and then we put them together so they create the animation. This is for a time series. Okay, so in Matplotlib, there are some basic steps. I will state the steps first, and then in three examples, we will go over the steps. So it's gonna be clear at the end. All right, so the first step, regardless the library that you are using, is that you need to plan your animation. So you need to decide what type of plot you want to show, what is the variable that you're going to use for the transitions, or to ensure that the plot is moving, is changing. So we can use here bar charts, lines. That will depend, of course, of the type of data that you want to represent. Okay, so if you're using Matplotlib, then the structure of your data matters. So here you will need an array. You need to ensure that your data is an array in a vector. Because if you're using Plotly, typically you will require your data in a data frame, more like tidy data in columns, right, instead of an array. So it's really important to plan this part, and because depending on the library that you're going to use, then you need to adapt your data to match the requirements of the library. All right. So once you have a clear idea of what type of plot you want to create, then we need to create the figure and the axis. So the figure is just like at the canvas where we're going to create our different plots, and the axis can be seen as only the x-axis, y-axis, and the elements for a single plot. So typically we're going to create an empty figure, an empty axis, and then we update them. Okay, so the third step is that in Matplotlib it's required to create a function. Typically we're going to call it an update function, but the name is irrelevant. Now, what it does is like that function is going to create the multiple plots or frames that are required for the animation. And then we use the function or the method func animation, which is from Matplotlib. And the parameters of this function are the figure that was created here in step 2. We also need to add the function that was created in step 3. We need to define the number of frames, so how many plots are required, and then the transition, the time between one frame and the other. So with the 4 parameters, we can create our animation. So once we have our animation, then we can save it in different formats. You can save it as a video if you want, or as a GIF file. That's another option. All right, so let's get started creating animated plots. First, let's load our libraries. So please notice that all these libraries are known for because we have used them throughout the course. So we're going to use Matplotlib, the basic package, and also the animation part because we need the func animation. And Plotly. Okay, example 1. Let's create bar charts for self-comparison over time. So first we need our data. In this case, we're going to analyze 3 products: laptops, phones, and tablets. We have the months, 12 months, right? Remember that it will go from 1 to 12, right? Then we input our data as an array, the sales. So here we have, in the first element of the array, these are the sales for the 12 months for laptops. Then 12 months, the sales for the phones, and then for the tablets. All right. So the second step is to create a figure and the axis. The AX represents the axis. So it's just an empty canvas, what we're creating right now. Please notice that here we're not providing the data. The data is included in the update function. So this is a function that we create to update our plot, or in other words, to create the different frames. So the first thing that we do is that we clear the previous plot, and I will show you the impact of this command once we create our first animation. Then the second line, this is the important one because here we're creating the frames, we're creating the plots. So we're creating a bar chart. So what information is provided here? In the X, this is a bar chart. So in the X-axis, we need the name of the products. That will be laptops, phone, and tablets. So it's given in this list. And then in the Y-axis, we want to see the sales, right? We want this information. So of course, that depends if it's laptops, phones, and tablets. So what is the idea of the plot? It will show us a bar chart where it will have a bar for each product, and the height of the bars will be given by the sales. And of course, it's gonna change or transition depending on the month. Okay, so that's why we have here sales. And please notice that we're saying, okay, we're gonna have everything for, and it says frame. What is frame? Frame is just a parameter of our function, and the values are given for in this function, in this other method, where we're creating 12 frames. It means that because we need 12 months, right? So the frames here is going to move from 0 up to that value without including it. So we'll go to position 0, position 1, 2, and 3. So let me show it to you how it looks. I need to load the data real quick here. So if we get like all data for position 0, because the frame initially is going to be equal to 0, we get 20, 30, and 10. So these are the sales for the first product, second product, and third product. Let me show it to you, 20, 30, and 10. So here, for example, for the first month, we have, for the first month, we have 20, that's the sales of laptops, 30, that's for phones, and 10, that's for tablets. And then the frame, again, it begins with 0, always because of Python indexing, and then it moves to 1. I mean, this is what this function will use it. It's like a for loop, and it's gonna give us like the upper limit without including it for the loop. So it's creating the frames. So when the frame is equal to 1, that will be for the second month, second position. So the numbers that we get in second position are 25, 35, and 15. So that's the second month, right? So for laptops 25, for phones 35, and for tablets 15. So what we're doing is we are providing that information here. So we create first the month 1, so that's a bar chart, then a second bar chart for month 2, and we keep doing the same thing until the last month. The colors are optional, so here we have blue, green, and black. And here we have the information, like for the labels, the title, limits, the Y label, X label. This is a custom text that we're adding into our chart. This is optional, but what it's going to display is just the month. So month 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me show it to you because we have the final result here on top. When the animation is working, you see month 6, month 7. That's the text that we're adding. Again, that's optional, but it's a good way to know what you're visualizing, right? Is to keep track of the bars to see if the sales belong to which month. All right. So once we have created our update function, again, the purpose of this is to create the multiple frames or multiple plots that are required for every single month. Now we use our font animation. This is a method from Matplotlib, and it requires 4 parameters. The figure is just the empty canvas. It was created here at the beginning, right, of our code. Then the function that is going to update the plot or create the frames, which is this one. So you can change this name, the update, if you want. But this is important, the frame, because again, it's going to be limited by the number of frames. So the number of frames refers to how many plots you need to create that animation. Since we want to visualize the 12 months, we need 12 frames. And the interval is the time in milliseconds for the transitions between two frames. So this is 1 second. If it's the number is smaller, then the transition is going to be faster. And if you increase this number, then it's going slower. Okay, so we create a plot, and once you do that, the next step is to generate our .gif file. So let's generate our file. The name that I'm assigning is sales growth.gif. Is this one. So now I can download the file, and we can open it to visualize it. Sales growth, right? So now you can see. Now this is an iterative process, and this is something important here is like, remember that when you're doing an EDA, you will generate multiple plots. So there is no need to animate every single plot. But what is important, if you need to present your results, the insights of the EDA, so you will pick the most important plots where you're, like getting insights, right? With the things that you really want to show. And those are the plots that maybe you want to improve, customize, spend more time, right? So animation is a possibility. You don't need to push it. It's a natural way just to show the evolution of a variable. So if it makes sense, then it's a great idea to do it. But it's not like I need to apply animation, to every single plot from now on. No, it depends, right? If it's required, it's a nice way to visualize your data. Now, let me tell you that it's an iterative process. So sometimes you will get some errors, or even though you don't get an error, there is like the result is not what you're looking for. Let me give you an example. Since we're learning here, let's say that, for example, you're not familiar with the clear here. So let's say that I remove the clear. So that means that it's not clearing the frame. The things that is gonna like adding, you're just changing the values and adding the elements into the same or the existing frame. So let's see the impact of just removing this. If we do that, let me see. Let's rerun the whole thing. And now let's visualize our sales growth file. Look at the problem here with the text, with the label. It's month 3, but the problem is that we are not clearing. We are adding the same text, but on top of the previous one. So it's month 1, month 2, month 3, and then at the end you cannot read it, right? So that's a mistake. That's a problem that you're getting here. Let me show you another problem that you might have, or you may experience. Sometimes it is possible just to keep the labels for the plots outside the function, the update function. That will depend on the problem, of course. So I'm going to remove it. I'm going to place it here just to explore the results. Because I'm sure that once you are practicing or you're trying to do this for real, you might like struggle with different situations. And that's fine. That's normal when we're coding. So let's see the impact of removing the labels from the function. Let me generate again the animation in the GIF file. Oh, we're still having I forgot to remove the clear. Let me remove the hashtag here. So now it's gonna we're going to get rid of that problem. But that was going to create another problem when we have the clear here. So it's going to fix that one, but it's gonna create a new one. And that's what I want to show you. Again, this is an iterative process. So the label is fine, but look at fonts. It looks that is like kind of like static, right? Or constant, but it's not. The problem is since we're clearing the data, since we are like clearing everything in the plot, so the access we don't have like the limits that were defined originally. So we're creating like new limits based on the date of the month. In this particular case, since fonts is always like the maximum value per month, this is why it looks like it's not moving. It is moving, but the problem is like the 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 y-axis is changing, so you don't see the fonts bar to change. So this is a problem, of course, because if you have an audience and you present this, it's very confusing, right? So if you have the clear inside, then we need to add again the limit. We need to set the limit inside the update. So we ensure that we have the same y-axis throughout the whole animation. So this is just to show, like some of the problems that you might experience, but as part of the learning process. Okay, so let's just move this inside the update function as it was originally. But now it makes sense. It makes more sense why we have that inside the function, right? All right, so let's continue with our second example. This one is very useful. It's for time series. I will say this a lot of times. Time series are really important in data science. I don't know why in many programs it's not like a core course, right? The time series analysis, especially because you're in companies, when you're in business, most of the metrics that you analyze them over time. It's really important, right? If you are forecasting your sales, which is kind of like a really important, it's a big thing when you're planning your operations. Time series are key, right, for this type of analysis. All right, so in this case, we're gonna visualize the COVID cases, like infections in a small town over 10 weeks. 10 weeks. So we want to see like week one, and we want to see the evolution, right? Like the line, how it's like, what is the trend over the 10 weeks. So our data is we have weeks, these are the 10 weeks. We know the cases, it's an array. Remember, Matplotlib requires an array structure. Then we create our plot. This is the empty canvas. Here we add the title, the y limit, and the x limit. This one is simple. X label, y label, and now the update function. So this is a plot, it's just a line plot, right? So in the x-axis, we need the weeks. And then in the y-axis, we will visualize the cases. And of course, they depend on the frame. You can explore why is frame plus one. If you leave it just frame, then the first one, the first value is going to be empty. It's going to be like an empty plot. So in order to ensure that we get the values starting from week one, that's why we add the plus one in this specific case. This is not always. This is for this particular case, which is a line. Again, you can explore it with removing the plus one and see the impact on your animation. The marker is optional, though. This is just the way in which a point is going to be visualized, and the color, of course, you can change it. So this is a simple update function. It's just to create the plot, the frames. And the next step, remember, is the function where we use fig, which is the figure that we created at the beginning of the problem here, right? It's an empty one. The function that we're going to use to update the frames or create the frames is this one. Number of frames. So how many plots, right, are required to create this animation? Since we want to evaluate or we want to visualize the cases, number of cases over 10 weeks, then we need 10 frames, right? 10 plots. So say, okay, when we have the first point, then we have the first and the second point, then we have the first, the second, and the third one. It's like a cumulative, right? And then the interval here, you can my advice, you should experiment, right? Like trial and error. It will depend, of course, of your presentation or your needs. Sometimes you want your animation to go faster or you need to go slower. So just test different values to see the impact. All right. So let's create the plot. Let's save it. Let's save it here as a GIF file. Our COVID.gif. Let me open it. And this is how it looks. So first week, second week. So we see a trend here is increasing here in week 5, and then it decreases, right? So we get the peak here. So maybe when you are preparing this analysis, sometimes you want to add more information, like a text, right? So maybe you want to show like, oh, this is the peak. So you can add a text or some symbols to represent the peak. That's possible. And that's why Matplotlib is nice in this part, because you can customize your plot. So to add text, not just at the beginning, also at some point, like in the middle of the animation. So we can do that. If you go, I would show, that would be in example number 4 in this one. So what we'll do here with this code is just to add a message, just like a text that shows, okay, this is the peak of infections peak. But we will add it at week 5. So the structure is similar. We have the data, we create our figure, right? And then we initialize our text. The peak text is going to be empty at the beginning, none. But then in the update function, we create like we add a conditional here. So the conditional is if the frame, remember the frame is what is going to do the iteration. So if frame is equal to 4, why 4 and not 5? Remember that the frame, the first value is 0, right? That's for the Python indexing. So then when frame is equal to 4, that will be week 5. So we're in week 5, and the peak test is none. So if we haven't added the text before, then we add the text in Fenchok's peak, and of course the location. You need to ensure that it's in the center. You need to just play with these coordinates, right? And that will place the message or the text at week 5. So let me show you how it looks. So these are the nice things that you can add to your plot or to your animation to make it, like very specific to your needs. And of course, in here, my advice is to use this native AI, to tweak a little bit more and to expand the changes that you can do to your animation. All right. So let's visualize the new one, the new text.gif. So the same idea, showing but look at the text message that we get here. So you can customize it, right? You can remove it later if you want, another one. So yeah, the possibilities here are endless. It's up to you how you want to customize, and of course the time that you want to spend in the plot. So it's what really matters is like, okay, I want to tell a story. I want to present some nice results. I have, like really important insights here to provide. So this is one way to kind of like show them in a very nice way. Okay, let's go over one more example. But now you notice that the structure is similar. So this is for pie charts animation. So we have here 3 platforms: X, Threads, and TikTok. These numbers are synthetic numbers, are randomly generated. So this is the market share per year. So we have 6 years. The 80 means 80% of the market, 20% of the market. So initially Threads, I think Threads is relatively new. I don't recall which year, but I don't believe it has more than 3-4 years. I don't think so. All right, so let's analyze the market share of these 3 products using a pie chart. So same steps. We create our plot, then we define our function that's gonna update the animation or create the multiple frames. So here the parameter is frame, remember, because you want to iterate here the values. It's going to take these values. So for the three companies, so for Twitter, for Threads, and for TikTok. We have the labels. This is how you're going to show the percentages and the colors. We use the func animation method, this one. When we add the figure, the function, the update function, we need 6 frames because we're analyzing 6 years. There are 6 transitions. And the interval here is, remember, this is in milliseconds, so 1000 milliseconds. So that should be a second, right? 1 second. Let's run it. Let's create our .gif file. And let's see how it looks. So initially there are only 2 companies, right? Because the market share is 0 for Threads. But then, of course, it changes. And that's what you see here in the plot. So it's simple. The structure, once you understand the pattern in the code, you can recreate this in different scenarios, right? Okay, so as I said at the beginning of the video, Matplotlib, it's like a low-level animation, right? So you can customize your animation. But if you want to do something quick, like you don't have to spend a lot of time, then Plotly is a good alternative for that. So this is an example here. So we have 3 cities and the time, and we want to see the weather, the temperature. This is in Celsius degrees. It's not Fahrenheit. Celsius degrees. All right. So we want to see it as a bar chart, but we're gonna use Plotly. So the first requirement for Plotly is recommended to always have your data as a data frame. So we need to take this dictionary and translate it to a data frame. So that's our first step here. So let me show you how it looks, our data frame. Oh, pandas is not defined. Okay, let me add pandas. I remove it at some point. So let's import pandas. There you go. You shouldn't have that problem because now I have updated the code. All right. So let me show you how it looks. The data frame was because initially we had a dictionary, but then with the meld method, we created a hour as the ID of the variables. Then the bar name equal to city. So this is New York, London, and Tokyo. And the values, these are values, the values inside this list, that's the temperature. So we will get a data frame with 3 columns. So let me show it to you how it looks. Is this? So we get the hour from 0 to 4, and it repeats, then the city and the different values. So the meld functions help us to create the data frame. All right, so once we have that, we can just use Plotly Express. So it's just px, that's the alias, bar for the bar chart, the data, the data frame. So what goes into the x, that's the city, name of the city. Then in the y-axis, the temperature, the color is optional. The animation frame, this is what is going to generate, like the transitions animation. So it's going to be based on the time. If you remember our application with the gapminder, we use year for the animation frame. The range for the y variable, title, and text. So once you do that, you get the Plotly Express chart here. So let's just run it, and it shows the changes in the weather, right? In the temperature of these 3 cities. Now this one again it's more like high level animation. It's simple to use. We just need to add a parameter, the animation frame, and that's it. So it's good when you want to create something fast, when you want some interactivity, an interactive chart, because Plotly is really good for this. But if you need to customize it, add messages, add symbols, and add some like weird conditions during the animation, then you will need to use Matplotlib. All right. Okay, I'm gonna finish the session for today. I'll see you in our next class.